the cost of free money, the unforeseen cost of the great thing of getting a grant, had me crying in the grocery. What was going on? A community organization manages to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars from modest income average Canadians in no time, even though they don't qualify for traditional funding or financing or support. There are holes, and I think unintended, but considerable obstacles to doing some things that I think are valuable. And in fact, not doing them puts us behind the rest of the world. So what should we be doing? That is the question today on Something Different This Way Comes. I'm Heather McLeod. Something Different This Way Comes explores how to fix what's not working. As a certified financial planner, I'm on the front lines, seeing how systems that are intended to do certain good don't always miss the mark. In fact, I think it's fair to say it's not working very well. It should be hard to get this wrong, but it ain't. It's hard to get it right, and that's not right. And speaking of what's not right, the other thing I've been digging into even longer is our food systems. As a locavore, growing much of what I eat for 20 years, a journalist who kept coming back to food from field to belly. I think the measure of an economy's health is how we manage our food. And our economy is not terribly healthy. But what would good look like? Well, let's start with what do we have? And then a little digging into how did that happen? Before we get around to, well, what can we do about it today? Living with this less than perfect. And then a bit of dreaming. What can we do about it? As citizens, as employers, as people who live somewhere and care. Something different, this way comes something. Something different, something different, something different, this way comes something. Something different, something different. Okay, my stories to put into context what I want to talk about today, to give you a real front lines take on what this can look like. I burst into tears in the grocery store when I realized I couldn't afford to buy milk. And I hadn't seen this insufficiency coming. I felt so stupid and scared. And I was right to be scared. How I got there, in short, was a festival. I met this wonderful young woman who was just high as a kite after going with a whole bunch of friends to Lilith Fair. And I was excited myself. I was several years into my music career, met so many people, really had seen the power of getting people together around creative opportunities to share ideas and bounce off each other and learn from each other. So we decided to launch our own little festival for young emerging Canadian women artists. We called it Phalia's Voice. She's the muse of music. And we managed to get funding for it and pull it off. And it was really successful. As the senior of the two of us, I was kind of in charge of figuring out how to manage the money side of things. That was really left mostly to me. And I had not accounted for interest. Instead, when we were awarded a giant grant in the fall that would be paid to us only after we submitted receipts the next summer after having the festival, I said, well, I have a credit card. We'll use that to finance us from now till then. And nowhere in anyone's budget, I don't even know if they would have covered it. had anybody considered that by the time I could put every penny they gave us to reimburse what receipts we'd handed in onto that credit card, the balance owing was substantially higher because of those compounding interest. We paid the minimums, but that's all of all that time in between. And those payments of the minimums couldn't be claimed, right? Those were not among the receipts I could hand in. I felt really stupid. And I was right to be scared because that was really the beginning of me leaving music as a career. I would book my career, my tours, my gigs by then, like a year and a half out. So there wasn't a lot of flexibility for me to make more money as a musician. I was already working all kinds of jobs in every spare minute I could find in order to make my life pay. I never netted enough between them all to pay much in taxes. There was really not any easy way to pay off this debt. And after limping along with it for a while and taking on more and more non-music gigs that paid better, I just took on a full-time one at CBC. And I thought I could do both, but I was wrong. And that was kind of the end of me being a full-time musician. I was lucky to have had as long in it as I had. But I think it's a fair illustration of some of the seemingly invisible barriers that can be dismissed as naivete to people going out there and doing valuable things in our community. Because I think creativity is valuable. And I sure was generous, right? In all the things that I did without making gobs of cash for it. My other story is my mom. So about 20 years ago, 20 years ago, my mom got together with some friends to say, let's put our heads together and instead of waiting for the solution to come to our community, figure out how to build our own solutions when it comes to affordable housing. My mom lives in Haliburton County, which is cottage country, which drives up the cost of land and housing. It also drives up a need for seasonal workers in retail, with the irony that how do they afford housing when houses are cottage country high? And who even bothers to build rental for seasonal workers? And yet lots of those seasonal workers were there year-round stretching their dollars to live where they live. So they were going to get financing to buy a property and become a landlord from the bank. Instead, they got creative. And in fact, by the time this story I want to tell you happens, they had 5 properties with 12 units between them, and this whole incredible network of people that would contribute when they raised funds, that would donate their time and their skills, that would give them stuff at a discount, and even that had personally mortgaged some or all of those properties. By the point that I want to talk about, other financing had been provided by banks, but at really high interest rates because a not-for-profit community group just doesn't tick what boxes banks need in order to provide affordable financing, which is the nub of my conversation with you today. So a few years ago, Places for People approached Tapestry about launching a community bond. Tapestry is a national organization that figured out how to do this community level alternative financing model, where instead of you taking $5,000 and depositing it in a bank for a fixed rate of interest after a certain period of time, a guaranteed income certificate, you would give that money and loan it to a community organization you really believe in and get it back with interest, just the same, except it falls completely outside of the banking world because it's going to a community organization that doesn't tick their boxes. But it probably ticks yours. If you want your money that has to stay and you make you money until you need to spend it, to be along the way doing work that you really believe in, what a great opportunity a community bond is. But nobody, I think, or at least very few, had used one to finance affordable housing. And when Places for People launched theirs, they asked for $850,000. And they got it in a few weeks from their neighbors, not from any wealthy person coming in and throwing them $100,000 or whatever. Most of it was little $500, $1,000, $5,000, 5-year bonds. Gone. And since then, whenever they renew those bonds, people buy it happily. It's been super successful and has not only allowed them to seriously lessen how much of what they managed to scrape together for income goes towards paying interest on debt, but position them so they can now get cheaper debt from the bank. Because what kind of proof, what more proof could you want of being a good bet than that many people putting their money where their mouth is? It's a kind of backdoor. Only how did they do it? I mean, it's a pretty amazing start that they built before that community bond went out. And yet, community bonds are such an opportunity for us to figure out how to fund what we most value where we live. So what's the context? What is going on here? Well, we're missing a piece in our economic structure in Canada that most other developed countries have identified and been really actively building up in recent years. In Scotland, in last February, they passed the Community Wealth Building Act. And that was where it first kind of put words around what I had been seeing and trying to better understand. And what it does is say, a bank is really structured for specific things that are kind of big or growing and proven that they're likely to get even bigger, or already rich. They're very good at loaning you money if you could actually have spent that money out of your savings, but they'd rather you leave that money invested and borrow others than you're paying them twice, right? Paying them to manage the investments and paying them to borrow from them. And you are probably making more money from the investments than it's costing you to borrow, so you feel like you're ahead too. If you're rich enough to play those games, the bank is for you. It's perfect. But there's a lot of things in our economy that are really important that aren't there. They're not big enough, or may never be big enough, and maybe their whole focus is not about profit either. It's about meeting a local need with local means, like my mom and her friends did when it came to affordable housing, like my friend and I did when it came to getting young women together to learn from one another. We could have tried to pretend that, this is going to be so great, we're going to make as much money as Lilith Fair did, but Lilith Fair had a lot more resources to bring, including, already headlining artists in those festivals. They were just proving that having an all-woman bill was not going to be, detrimental to the success of a tour. We just wanted to get people together to inspire each other. That's really what we wanted to do. And we were successful and we were valued by our community. But getting funding to us was not a good match for the tools that are out there. Our charitable and our foundation tools are very protected to ensure that they're not used for anything but what's intended, which can be a burden. It can exclude people like us that don't have enough money to reasonably bridge doing something and getting then reimbursed with the proven receipts, right? Community bonds is an example of some of the ways that people have figured out how to bridge this gap. They're all over the place. They've been growing and learning from each other and connecting across Canada for decades, but they've never managed to get beyond very big because they don't have policies and laws that support them and really make room for them in our country. They have to do a crazy dance in order to pull all of this off at all, which is administratively very expensive, which makes it harder, again, to defend it and to find financing for it and partners willing to do it. I mean, Tapestry is wonderful because they offer a service that kind of takes the yucky bookwork, paperwork, and minimize that burden on the community organization that has identified a need and come up with a solution to meet that need. That's wonderful, but it would be so much better if there was more law in place to structure it, like Scotland just passed. In fact, the United States, back in the Bill Clinton era, they decided to establish, to take their sort of then scattered like ours is little initiatives of how do we fund this important neighborhood level stuff and turn it into policies and a backbone of basic funding that can be loaned and returned and loaned and returned. that they call the Community Development Financial Institutions. There's an act behind it. And Trump has tried to dismantle it because, getting the little guy up to compete with him is his idea of hell. And in fact, even his Republican allies united against him and said, do not touch this one, right? Because they can see in their constituencies what a difference it makes when locally identified needs can be met locally and everybody feels ownership, right? And is 100% behind that structure. Right now in Canada, some of those organizations that have been figuring out what it takes to do this right now have been collaborating with the Americans that created that community development financial institution to say, I don't want to completely reinvent the wheel. What pointers can you give me? And with one another to say, what would work here that was different from them, that's specific to us. And they are drafting up a white paper to give to the federal government and say, come on, I know you keep making announcements about big sheds of money for this and big sheds of money for that. This shed of money would be so impactful, right? Right now, small and medium businesses, we're not even talking charitable and not-for-profit enterprises, but small and medium businesses in Canada fall outside of what banks can fund, such that only 11% of the money being spent goes to them, compared to Japan, where it's like, I wrote it down, 69% of funding to small and to businesses go to small and medium ones in Japan. And in the United States, even in the Trump era, it's still 18%, like close to twice what it is in Canada. In France and most European countries, it's around 35%. That's a more natural percentage. So we are strangling ourselves. It's hard to see what doesn't happen. It's hard to see the two young women that get together and say, oh my gosh, let's do something here. I can pull in this friend of mine and talk to my mom and get my uncle to do this other thing. And let's make this thing happen here. It'll be so great. That don't happen because they just can't make it work financially. It's hard to count those. But looking at what does get paid as a percentage of an economy, what does happen, versus the average among all the other developed worlds out there, economies on our planet, and seeing that we are that far behind, like among the lowest in the world, is fairly fair evidence there is room here for improvement. Wouldn't you say? Something different, this way comes something. Something different, something different. Something different, this way comes something. Something different, something different. Okay, so if that's what it looks like, and here's how it happened, what can we do to change it? Well, totally look at this solution. Talk about this idea of community wealth building, of needing to upgrade our policies and systems to better support, local endeavors and small companies and neighborhood level services, not just what is, in investment ready because it's got a proven profitability and it's got enough capital behind it that if they can't pay a loan, you can take away their building and sell it for more than they owe you. And those sorts of banking level safety precautions. Let's create something to support other smaller startups, figure out how to get this ups. And my main goal here is social and not profit sort of work in our community. Talk to your MP. Now's a great time. They're accepting input, and then they're going to start chewing it over in September. Like they're accepting input till like September 7th, right after Labor Day, basically. So if you can get in to talk to them in August, timing is perfect. They'll be like, oh, I just had some constituent send me this email or give me a call or stop me in the grocery store and say something about this community wealth building. Or they're calling it the Canadian Opportunity Finance Act. The white paper that's getting drafted up, they're calling it an opportunity finance. It's kind of cool. Look for that. Also, maybe look at your phone book. Here's mine. It's a little worse for the wear. I also have an enormous one in my phone book. my phone itself. But if you, like my mom, might have a friend or two that can imagine an improvement worth backing, or figuring out how to make happen with the resources at hand in your neighborhood, dare to dream and talk about it and rope in the people you think of and call them up and say, I was just thinking of you because we were talking about da-da-da-da, and see if you can't come up with some, innovative, let's make this happen without waiting for money to come from other levels of government or from a giant donor. What can we do? Those kinds of seeds of community, they quickly become ripe for things that more of us can join in on, like a community bond initiative or a fundraising initiative, faster than you might think. And in fact, right now, there's a whole bunch of alternative investment initiatives out there that are looking for what they consider to be an investable opportunity. And what they need is a good idea that's going to have social positive benefits, as well as not be a giant black hole monetarily, right? Make sense financially. And for that to happen, they need to have that seed of community. And those seeds don't sprout anymore in our bowling alleys and at our church coffee hour after service. They happen because somebody calls somebody and says, let's talk. So if you could be that person, whoa, that'd be so great. Tell me about it. I would love to hear about that. Maybe it's just how you choose to invest. Go check out the Tapestry website. They announce who's now selling community bonds. Check out those initiatives. See if you want to contribute a bit of something towards that, if that's something you want to do. There are other initiatives being brought forward to the feds, other groups saying, listen, can you please make things like community bonds be eligible for tax benefits like being held in an RSP? Right now they're not. Maybe they should be. I think they should be. Most of us don't ever get a chance to invest in anything except our RSPs. Why can't that then include a community bond? You can raise that one with your MP, send them an email, or just talk to people. Because if you know anybody who's got a community organization already on the go, that if they had here we need to launch a community bond to help make more affordable the money we need to borrow, help us do what we do in your community that you know about, tell them that they should check out community bonds or impact funds and talk to other people doing it in other communities and maybe add that to their mix. Like, people don't know about these precedents. And the more we do know and think about why they might be valuable, how they might help, the better the odds we'll find the solutions that work for us. These shouldn't be rare as fairy sightings. This should be an integral part of everybody's local economy, really. In the fair scheme of things, we got a lot of catching up to do, and the first step is actually a conversation. Something Different This Way Comes is as independent as they come. It's a one-woman show from my apartment here in Thunder Bay, Ontario, and I'm so glad you're listening. In fact, I'd love to make it a conversation. If you want to email me, I promise I will read it, and if it's a fit, I'll include it. It would be really cool if you gave me an audio clip, you did on your phone maybe, or even video. Tell me a story. How is the rubber hitting the road where you are? What have you seen? What does it make you think about what good looks like? I'd love to know. Something Different This Way Comes at proton.me is my email address. You can help me out lots of ways, actually. I'd so appreciate it. You could join the newsletter. You can do that at both my websites. SomethingDifferentThisWayComes.ca also gives you a chance to contribute monetarily to my GoFundMe. At HeatherMcLeodWealth.ca, you could look into working with me as your certified financial planner. Advice only. I don't sell anything, except helping people build maps through this crazy world and realize whatever actions they then decide to take. It's an adventure, but it leaves you richer, honest. You can book a one-on-one to talk about it. I call it a financial planning health check. That's free. You just book a little bit of advice. I call it bite size. you can embrace the holistic of it. And then we'll work together for a while. That's at heathermcleodwealth.ca. And I so appreciate a recommendation to a friend, a review, a like, a subscribe. Thank you. Something different, this way comes something. Something different, something different, something different, this way comes something. Something different.